All right guys, so on today's video, we're gonna be talking about arrow spine, and we're gonna answer the question, or try to answer the question, of whether or not it even matters. So this video is in response to a video that Ryan Gill put out a few days ago, where Ryan showed himself shooting one of the Stone Age bows that he made and shooting a very wide range of spines and showing that arrow spine didn't matter when it comes to grouping arrows. So what I'm gonna do is back up here about 15 yards and I'm gonna shoot a variety of spines, and I'm basically gonna recreate something very similar to what he did. Once we do that, we're gonna talk about arrow spine in a little bit different way than Ryan talks about it. Now, for those of you who are interested in the bow that I'm going to be shooting today, this is one that I just recently finished. This is a 64-inch overall Osage longbow. It's got a sinew backing, and then the sinew is covered with prairie rattler skins. But it's been a long time since I've built a bow for myself, so I went ahead and treated myself to this one. This was an absolutely beautiful stave. I mean, the lines on this thing are immaculate. You don't very often find a piece of Osage like this, and it had about 4 inches of back set to start with, and then when I put that reflex in it and put the sinew on there, it just exaggerated this. So this thing is an absolute speed demon. I haven't got a chance to shoot it through my chronograph yet, but I'm gonna guess that it's shooting well over 180, probably approaching 190 with a 10 grain per pound arrow. But anyway, let's go shoot some arrows. So before we start shooting, I want to make one thing very clear, and that is that I'm not questioning what Ryan is doing. I've hunted with Ryan, I've talked to him extensively, he's a great guy, and it's very obvious from the success that he's had over the last 10 or 15 years that the way he does things is very effective for him. He's killed a lot of animals with primitive archery gear, and quite a few of them, most of them perhaps, with stone points. And so I'm not questioning that. What I am saying, and what we're going to get into here, in the meat of this video, is that by paying attention to these things and by making sure that your arrows are matched to your bow, you will increase the efficiency of your setup and take advantage of all the power that you place into this bow, because your job is to place power into the bow, or energy into the bow. The bow's job is to transfer that energy to the arrow, and the arrow's job is to transfer that energy, or maintain that energy actually, through the animal. We're going to talk about how to maintain that energy here in just a little bit. Let's shoot a few arrows today, and these are some arrows that I pulled out of my arrow test kit, and they're all different spine ranges. I've got 45-50, 65-70, what is this, 55-60, and 75-80. They all have 160 grain tips on them, and they're cut a little bit too long for my draw length. But what I want to show you is that when it comes to grouping arrows within reasonable hunting distances, and this is where 15 yards from that target, arrow spine really doesn't matter that much. And you're going to see that right now. If I can shoot worth a darn. All right, not the greatest group in the world, but not terrible for a bunch of mismatched arrows. So I was aiming at this little white piece of fluff here, and they're all kind of spread out this way. That was probably my poor shooting causing them to spread out like that. I'm gonna do that one more time. I'm just gonna leave the camera right there and just shoot past the camera this time. All right, so again, not the greatest, and they're all kind of grouped over to the left here. But that's good enough. It's good enough to kill an animal at 15 yards. And so if we can still group, this is a massive range of spine. I mean, it goes all the way from, what did I say, 45-50 to 75-80, I think. Let's see. Yeah, 45-50 to 75-80. Massive range in spine. And so, as you can see, you're still capable of grouping at what I would consider, you know, most reasonable hunting ranges where you're going to find yourself. And so why do I spend so much time talking about and paying attention to matching my arrows to the bow when I can still group them? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The biggest reason that I spend so much time making sure that my arrows are tuned to the bow is because although you can group your arrows that are mismatched, when an arrow is not matched to the bow, it goes through an exaggerated paradox. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say paradox, all you have to do is just get on YouTube and type in archer's paradox, and you'll come up with some very good videos that show you how the arrow flexes around the riser of the bow. When it goes through an exaggerated paradox like that, it takes longer to straighten out, and the big thing is it takes more energy to straighten out. And with traditional bows, when you're talking about hunting big animals like elk and moose and things like that, you need all the energy that you can get to carry that arrow through, because what I'm interested in primarily is a full pass through, because that's where you're going to get your best blood trail. That's going to give you the best chance of killing that animal quickly and ethically. And so when you have an arrow that comes off of there and it's flying sideways for 10 yards, that robs a tremendous amount of energy as that arrow tries to straighten itself out, as opposed to spending a little bit more time trying to get your arrows tuned right so that they straighten out very quickly. Now, a lot of that stuff can be overcome by putting big fletchings on arrows, and that's one of the reasons why you see so many traditional guys shooting big, you know, 5-inch parabolic feathers on their arrows, is because it does mask or cover up or mitigate for a lot of those issues in tuning. You don't have to have your arrows tuned perfectly to the bow if you use big fletchings. Personally, I don't like to use big fletchings because, again, it robs energy from the arrow as those big fletchings stabilize that shaft. And so because I spend time tuning my arrows to my bow, I can run much smaller arrows than most guys are going to be shooting. These fletchings out of my test kit are actually bigger than what I normally shoot. The second big reason why I tune my arrows and I spend so much time focusing on that is because I spend a lot of time hunting in fairly dense country where there's brush all over the place. And having an arrow flying crooked, for me, increases the chance of getting some deflection off of some brush. And so I want my arrows coming off the bow and straightening out and overcoming that paradox as quickly as possible. That's going to decrease the chance of the tail end of my arrow hitting a piece of brush or grass or something else and deflecting. And it doesn't take very much to deflect an arrow and have it go who knows where. Now, I hear a lot of people say that, well, you know, people have killed countless animals and have never thought about spine, never thought about FOC, never thought about tuning or any of that stuff. And I would say you're absolutely right. There have been tens of thousands, millions perhaps, of big game animals killed with very poorly made archery equipment or poorly tuned archery equipment. I'm not saying that that can't be done. What I am saying is that when you don't tune your archery equipment, you're unnecessarily handicapping yourself. And by spending a little bit more time focusing on making sure that your arrows are matched to the bow, you pick up those advantages. Now, you don't have to have those advantages, like I said, to kill animals. Absolutely not. But I do feel very strongly that it does increase your probability of making a good shot, getting a full pass through, and a quick, clean, ethical kill. With that, we'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be explaining more about how I shoot and the way that I've developed my shooting technique to work in the type of hunting situations that I find myself in, and we're going to be doing that later on this summer. And so, like I said, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to if you don't want to miss out on that. We'll see you guys next time.